this bill.
I call Dennis O'Rourke.
Thank you. I want to speak on sections 10, 13 and 27 in part 2. And as we know, section 10 is actually the crux of the whole bill, because that's the section which provides for the question in the first flag referendum. And that question is, and I quote, "If the New Zealand flag changes, which flag would you prefer?" A simple question, but it's problematic, and it's poorly drafted because it suggests in the first few words that the flag will change. And of course, that's not necessarily the case. So the question should never have been drafted in that way, and it should never have referred to any suggestion that the flag will change. The last few words are the only ones that are relevant. Which flag would you prefer? Now, the point is this: the first few words are superfluous, should be deleted, but the real point is that this constitutes, in my mind, undue influence, bad practice, if not gerrymandering. And I say that quite seriously, not just trying to make a political point. It is actually a badly drafted question, and it shouldn't proceed in that way. New Zealand First, of course, says that the question should be, do you want a flag change, period? But we know that that's going to be rejected. Nevertheless, even as it is, there is a glaring defect in the currently provided for question, and that is that the current flag is not there at all amongst those which people can select. And it should be there. It should be there for comparison purposes, so people can see 4 options plus the New Zealand flag. Why not do that? It should do that. And it should be there also as a choice, because there is no genuine referendum in the first referendum process without the New Zealand flag being there at all. And it would be easy to simply delete the words, if, and I quote, "if the New Zealand flag changes," unquote, and to add the current flag as an option. If you did that, of course, you don't have to have the second referendum at all. People can look at the 4 options and the New Zealand flag and say, well, actually, I just want the New Zealand flag, vote for that. Or if they wish, of course, vote for one of the others. So I don't understand why we have to go through this convoluted, difficult, complicated and extremely expensive process of 2 referendums when we could do it all under section 10 in one hit. And we could do it fairly, we could do it without any undue influence, without any bad practice, and in a way that everyone could participate. Because the reason why this is such a glaring defect is there will be actually probably more than 70% of the population, according to the polls, who don't want to take part in that first referendum because they don't want any of those 4 options. So how on earth can they participate in the first flag referendum when it doesn't offer them any acceptable flag? Not one. And I believe the vast majority of people are in that category. The result of this is going to be a very, very poor turnout, and in addition, a huge number of spoiled votes. And is that an efficient and proper way for a country like this to proceed for something as important as choosing a new flag, if indeed that's what we want to do at all? So I think that this is a very, very badly drafted section and a badly conceived referendum process. Now, talking about section 13, that's the section, and I'm particularly referring to subsection 3. That's the section which says this, quote, "The Governor-General must, by order in Council made on the recommendation of the Minister at least 28 days before the commencement of the voting period for the second flag referendum, prescribe an official description of the current New Zealand flag to be used," and so on. Prescribe an official description of the current New Zealand flag. Like we don't know what it is already? I mean, for goodness sake, we know what the current flag is. But nevertheless, there does need to be some description. But the description shouldn't be, this is what it looked like, it's got the Union Jack there, it's got stars there and so on. That's not what we want. But what we do need in this section, Mr. Chairman, is this. What we do need is some information about the history and the heritage of the current flag. Because contrary to what Nikki Kay said, this flag actually does represent the culture and here, Mr Chairman,
I call Jackie Dean. Point of order, Carmel Cipollone.
Just seeking your advice, Mr Chair. We've just been informed that the ACT Party member was not on site when the last vote was cast, and just seeking your advice and just checking whether or not he had permission, or whether the Speaker gave him permission to be off site, whether they were able to cast that vote given he wasn't on the precinct.
Well, I'll hear from Paul Fosterville.
Mr Speaker, I have the proxy vote for the ACT Party on that issue here with me. I have absolute confidence in the honour of my colleague David Seymour to afford himself leave as appropriate and to be on the premises when he is. So I'm taking personal exception to my word as a whip being taken into question.
Well, I don't need any further advice in respect of this matter. A member can be off-site if he has leave and if he's supplied a proxy. The vote has already been taken. You can't call for a personal vote this far down the track, as far as I'm aware, although I'm prepared to take advice on that. But as far as process would have it, the vote has been called, the vote has been taken. A personal vote was not called at that time, and there isn't any reason to believe that should there be a personal vote, that would affect the outcome of the vote, because it was 63-58, and a sole member of a party has the complete right to be off-site if he has supplied a proxy. In expectation of that.
Mr Chairman.
Point of order, yeah. The Honourable Trevor Mallow.
Mr Chairman, I think there's one further point. That the member certainly has the ability to supply a proxy and be off-site if he has leave. And I think that is the question that was being asked by my colleague, an assurance from the government whips that the member who is at the hotel opposite has leave.
Well, in respect of that, the government whip is not responsible for giving leave to Mr Seymour, but he has a proxy which indicates Mr Seymour knows what he's doing because he supplied a proxy in expectation of not being in the chamber at the time. And in any event, the call around a personal vote is the expectation that a personal vote would change the outcome of that vote, and it clearly wouldn't, because the vote was 63-58.
Fresh point of order, Mr Speaker. Mr Chair.
Paul Fosterville.
Sorry, sir, this is just a point of clarification for me as a new member. In referring to the absence of a specific member, would that be out of order in this particular circumstance?
Oh, I don't need any assistance in respect of that. Obviously, the statement was made in respect of seeking clarification around a personal vote, and I suggest that we move on with the debate. I call Jackie Dean.
Refer to Standing Order 1554, and basically it says that he needs to have leave if he's given his proxy. He has to have sought leave before otherwise he has to be on the precinct. Has he got leave?
The point is he doesn't need to have leave from the National Party, and so you can't expect the Chief Government Whip to know whether or not he has leave. The fact is he supplied a proxy vote to the National Party as part of an arrangement that they have. I don't see there's any point in continuing with this level of points of order in respect of this man. I call Jackie Dean.
Thank you, Mr Chair.